collection here with Sugar Ray Leonard. How much better of a fighter do you think you would have even been with better equipment, better ways to train, because you always hear about the old school training with, the running, the sit-ups, the push-ups. It's a different time for that.
Well, for me, it was like protecting the hand, the right, just the right thing, and the glove, the thumb. I mean, it was a dream come true, and I would have been even a better fighter. I truly believe if that was from.
Well, those are my favorite gloves, the ones he's got on now, the throwback.
Sugar Ray Leonard was asked about Ryan Garcia's darkest moment on camera, and what came out of his mouth made boxing journalists call it one of the strangest reactions they had ever seen. He didn't attack Garcia, he didn't defend him. He pointed to his head, then to his heart, then walked away. By the end of this video, you will understand exactly why Leonard responded that way, and why it reveals something about Ryan Garcia's story that nobody else has been willing to say out loud.
Ryan Garcia and his positive steroid test, what do you think
I like what I see, and it's also here, it's here.
So you don't think much about his performance-enhancing drug test?
I'm such a big.
You clicked because Sugar Ray Leonard, one of the 5 greatest welterweights who ever lived, broke his silence on Ryan Garcia. And what he said, or more importantly, what he didn't say, has been sitting in the boxing world like a question that never got answered. Most people who covered Leonard's reaction called it confusing, vague, a non-answer from a legend who probably didn't want to get involved. Here is the angle nobody took. Leonard wasn't confused. He wasn't being diplomatic. He was looking at a version of himself, and he didn't know how to talk about it without talking about himself. In this video, we're going 3 places. First, what Leonard actually said on camera and why boxing media couldn't make sense of it. Second, what Leonard's own life story tells us about why Garcia's collapse hit differently for him than for anyone else. And third, the twist that changes how you read the entire story and what Leonard would have to say about Garcia today.
Mike Tyson's getting back into the ring, 57 years old, man. What are your thoughts on him? Jake Paul, 27.
Put it this way, a lot of people gonna watch that fight. Okay? I'm one of them.
Any advice for Tyson?
Who has any advice?
To understand the weight of Leonard's reaction, you need to understand what he was being asked about. In May 2024, Ryan Garcia's win over Devin Haney, the biggest fight of his career, was overturned to a no contest after he tested positive for ostarine, a banned substance. His B sample confirmed the result. Garcia was suspended for 1 year by the New York State Athletic Commission and fined $1.1 million. He was expelled from the WBC after going on racist and Islamophobic rants on social media. He was arrested at the Waldorf Astoria in Beverly Hills for $15,000 in property damage. He later admitted to drinking every single day, including the day of the Haney fight itself. Into this wreckage, a Fight Hype reporter caught up with Sugar Ray Leonard and asked him about Garcia. And Leonard's response, pointing to his head and his heart and giving no real verdict, was reported as bizarre and baffling. But here is where the story gets complicated. Now, most people covering this story stopped at the headline, but there is one thing they all missed. Leonard's vague, non-committal response on Garcia wasn't an accident. It wasn't a dodge from a man who had nothing to say. Leonard pointed to his head, then to his heart, then essentially walked away from the question. That is not the response of someone who doesn't care. That is the response of someone who cares too much to say what he actually thinks. Why does that matter for the boxing audience? Because Leonard is not just a 5-division world champion. He is a man who has publicly, in his own autobiography, detailed his battles with depression, cocaine addiction, and alcohol abuse, all of them triggered by the exact same force that unraveled Garcia, the void that fame creates inside a fighter when the lights go off and nobody is telling you who you are anymore. Leonard said in interviews that he abused cocaine and alcohol to cushion mental blows away from boxing. He said there was a void in his life that fighting used to fill. That when boxing was gone, he felt he wasn't loved just as Ray. He said he felt his interactions were always superficial. He kept those feelings private for years. He only started talking about them in recovery. That language maps directly onto Garcia, word for word. But that's not even the most important part of this story. And this is where the real story, the one nobody in mainstream boxing media connected, finally comes out. Garcia said publicly, "I was drinking every day, every single day, even the day of the fight. I was struggling mentally for years, and it just wouldn't stop for me. That's how I coped with it." He said, "I wanted to kill myself at one point." He pulled out of a fight in 2021 because depression had paralyzed him. He described going to bad habits whenever the pain got too heavy to carry alone. Leonard described his own life in almost identical terms. He admitted that cocaine and alcohol became his response to being sad, to feeling invisible outside the spotlight. He said that for years he kept those feelings entirely to himself, that the fame made it worse, not better. That what saved him was people, friends, family, his willingness to finally speak in recovery. These are not two different stories. These are the same story, separated by 4 decades. And yet, when Leonard was handed the microphone and asked to judge Garcia, the man who was living the same chapter Leonard had barely survived himself, he pointed at his head and his heart and said nothing clear. For the boxing audience watching this, that silence is not weakness. That silence is a man who knows exactly what Garcia was going through and cannot bring himself to throw a stone at someone standing inside the glass house he once lived in. But here is what nobody is connecting, and once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Here is the detail that reframes the entire story. Sugar Ray Leonard is ranked #1 on the WBC's all-time list of welterweight world champions. He won the WBC welterweight title at 20 years old. He beat Duran, Hearns, and Hagler. He is the gold standard of what the welterweight championship means. On February 21, 2026, Ryan Garcia knocked down Mario Barrios inside the first 30 seconds and won the WBC welterweight championship by 119-108, 120-107, 118-109. He is now the holder of the same belt Leonard defined. The man who went through depression, suicidal thoughts, drug suspension, arrests, public humiliation, and a year of drinking every single day is now the WBC welterweight champion. He climbed back the same mountain Leonard once climbed. He did it through the same fog. That is not emotional weakness. That is one of the most emotionally demanding comebacks boxing has seen in a generation. And the one man in the sport who truly understands what that cost, who lived it first, gave a vague answer on camera because the words were too close to home. Leonard's silence on Garcia was never about Garcia being weak. It was about Leonard knowing exactly how strong you have to be to survive what Garcia survived. The belt is around Garcia's waist now. And the story Leonard couldn't finish on camera, Garcia just finished it for him. 2 welterweight champions, 4 decades apart. Same darkness, same demons, same sport that nearly swallowed them both. One found the words eventually, the other found the belt first. And somehow that makes the whole story even better. Was Sugar Ray Leonard protecting Garcia by staying quiet, or does the boxing world deserve a real answer from the greatest welterweight of all time about the man now holding his belt? Drop your take below. If you want the full story on everything happening in boxing before it hits mainstream media, hit subscribe.